Hello, I'm Elaine Petrocelli, and I'm from Book Passage, and I'm so happy to welcome you all here this evening. Thank you all for tuning in, and also thank you. I want to thank everyone who has been so supportive of Book Passage through this pandemic, and of the authors who've written incredible books that they thought they would be touring for, and instead we're doing these events online, and we feel really lucky that we're able to do that. Tonight, we have two incredible authors. We are here to talk about the amazing book by Kate Russo, Superhost. And I can only tell you that if you like art, if you have a sort of an interesting idea about art critics, art gallery owners, you are going to love this book. Bennett is a absolutely once famous artist. His paintings sold for huge amounts of money. He painted nudes. He was doing very well. And then about 15 years ago, taste changed. Now he has decided to try to keep his London house by renting it out to visitors. Does that sound like a lot of houses in where you live? It certainly does where I live. This book is funny. It's something provocative. You are going to have such a good time. I hope everybody is going to get a copy of Superhost. And please, if you can, buy it from bookpassage.com or come into either of our stores, either at the Ferry Building in San Francisco or in Corte Madera. We are so lucky that one of my favorite authors, Steven Rowley, is going to be in conversation with Kate tonight. I met Steven when he wrote his book, Lily and the Octopus. We had the most wonderful afternoon on the patio outside our store, which we hope we will get to do again soon. Lily took over the world. We were so excited that with this book about this magnificent dog and the person who loved her so much. Now we have the editor, and guess who the editor is? This is Jackie Onassis is editing a first book of an author, and he never thought he'd get published. All of a sudden, he hits the jackpot. This book is also great fun to read. Lots of good gossip about the publishing world. And for anyone who admired and remembers Jackie Onassis, there's that fun part too. I was telling Stephen and Catherine before the event that I used to go visit Nan Talese at Doubleday, and sometimes Jackie Onassis would be there, and she was so nice, and I never knew what to say. So it's much more fun to read it in the book because it has great vignettes about editing about Jackie. It really is a book within a book. So here we have these two fabulous authors. And so I'm going to turn this over to Stephen, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy the afternoon and the evening where you are. Good night.
Thank you, Elaine, for that incredible introduction. And welcome, Kate. This is really an achievement. Superhost. We're so thrilled to have you here. I want to say, first of all and foremost, I feel for all debut authors who've had their first book come out during the pandemic and haven't quite had the full experience, because if we could be there in beautiful Corte Madera right now, that would be everything.
I had said to Sally that one of my dreams about going on this book tour was I've never been to California. I was going to go to California. And I still am sitting in Portland, Maine. So
we'll take a rain check. I'm sure Elaine. Listen, I'm sure Elaine will let us come. If not, we'll just have lunch out on her patio, where she has the most incredible tuna fish sandwiches at that store.
I have to interrupt to say both of you were scheduled for events with us, live events. So we're still waiting.
Yeah, one day. Yeah, we're just so grateful that you're there and weathering through. So. Kate, you and I have a couple things in common. One One of which is that we're both from Portland, Maine, or you currently live in Portland, Maine. We're both Mainers at heart. Is that where you're coming to us tonight from? Oh, you're not?
Well, based on the standard, I mean, you can tell me. I wasn't born here, so most people tell me no.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I didn't move until to Maine for my first time till I was in kindergarten, I think.
Yeah,
So I'm forever from away.
Yeah, we're from away. Yeah.
Yeah. For a California store, we're fine. We can say we're Mainers, but Mainers would tell us, you don't pass the smell test. Two, we have the same editor and the wonderful Sally Kim, who was grateful enough to send me your book last summer, advanced copy, when I fell in love with it. And most importantly for this conversation, three, we have both managed rental properties. I own a home in Palm Springs. Yeah, I have a home in Palm Springs, California, which I'm living in now.
Yeah.
But originally, for the first couple of years I owned it, we rented it out on Airbnb. And you did something similar. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah. Well, it was never. Well, I have rented out the house that I live in, but because I've been away, I had a friend here who manages all for me. But no, my parents had a house up in Camden, Maine, which is a beautiful coastal town in Maine that
very beautiful
flock to. And but they couldn't sell this house. And so we just decided, after a year of trying to sell it, well, why don't we try renting it for the vacation season? And I said, well, how hard could it be? I'll do it. I'll manage it online, and I'll clean it, and I'll do all of that. And of course, it was incredibly hard work, as I quickly learned, because you're basically running a hotel. And I mean, the sort of the stuff you need to know, about the place that you are, but it was a wonderful experience, because I met so many people, and the kind of people that pass through your life and you think, I could write a story about these people. These are the scenarios that you meet people like that in, when you do this kind of work. And so, most people would not, would say, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. But actually, if you're creative, I'd say go for it.
Yeah. And a bit of sort of fortuitous timing. This book feels very like of the moment to me, because with so many people sheltering at home and so many people working from home and needing a change of scenery, that Airbnbs, property rentals like this, are more popular than ever, particularly if you have kids and you need to get to a place with a swimming pool or something else to distract them. But I also think this is going to be how people vacation for the coming years. It's like having a space that you can have a little more control over versus a big hotel where you have to be in elevators and maybe touching 10 doorknobs before you get to the outside world. I think it's going to be less appealing. Yeah. So when did sort of Bennett Driscoll, the main character, how and when did he pop into your mind?
He popped into my mind pretty early on in the process of renting out that house, because one of the biggest parallels between me and Bennett is that we're both artists, and I was just really, really frustrated. Number one, that this is what I was doing. It ended up being a really good thing that I was doing it. But, when I first started doing it, I thought, well, I'm in my mid 30s. I thought I'd be further along than this. What am I doing? Cleaning houses. And I started thinking about, all of the artists that I admired, and all of the, when I go to New York and I go to exhibitions and these, these artists with these, gorgeous shows. And I thought to myself, well, why isn't that me? And, and most of these artists were men. And I just ended up thinking to myself, well, I bet they've never had to do anything like this. And so I had to invent one, and put him in my shoes. And that was really, it was, so in a way, it was kind of a spiteful creation, but not for very long, because I fell in love with him almost immediately.
There's a level of, there's a degree of difficulty to writing a main character, I think, of the opposite sex, particularly for a debut novelist. And not only that, that you did, not only did you do it so well, but you created a character that was sort of at a different age, going through sort of midlife crisis and stuff like that. Was there ever a consideration of Bennett more closer to your age, or not as a man, or what sort of challenges did you have writing a character of the opposite sex?
The age thing is funny. I'm not quite sure how the age thing happened the way that it did. It was really much more that I knew that I wanted him to be a man, and I saw him so clearly that way. And then when I started thinking about his daughter and how that relationship was going to work, I knew that I didn't want her in the house. I wanted her to be sort of on her way to grown. And so at that point, he couldn't be my age. So he just sort of became this, 55-year-old man. And really, I didn't have a ton of influence to draw on that, because I don't really know that many 55-year-old men,
Yeah.
So I think it was just kind of a little bit of luck of drawing on the people that I do know.
Yeah. One thing that's so fascinating to me with this book is the sort of crossover between artists and writers. And now you're living that in real life, working in both a visual medium and as a writer. But I was so struck by, because writers observe, right? It's like we have to observe the human condition, the people, the way they behave to write authentically. But writers are sometimes more sly observers, where as an artist, particularly if you're painting, doing a portrait or doing a nude or whatever, the artist has more control over how to pose their subject, where a writer could never be like, I'd like to actually observe you have this conversation. Could you, we have no ability to get in there and direct like that.
Yeah.
So I was really fascinated with the idea, the difference between sort of posing and observing, and then where the line comes to sort of outright spying, which is something that Bennett does to a certain degree, with limited degrees of success. But I wonder if you could just talk about that for a moment.
I think Bennett is, he is one of those artists who spent most of his successful career painting nudes, and painting in particular nudes in very sort of awkward poses. And I think that what happens is he realizes that that's not what he wants, that something is happening and it's not working. And the critics are saying, these women are coming off really cold. It's like he doesn't know his subjects, or these women are statuesque. They're not real. And so part of his journey is trying to figure out why that is, and how we got it wrong. And that was fun for me to do, because I don't paint that way.
Right.
But I look at a lot of painting throughout art history, and I use a lot of art history in my own work. And I tend to be more attracted to the paintings that are very kind of like we would call kind of a candid photo now, paintings from the turn of the century where obviously these men were posing these women, because they couldn't just take a snapshot, but it looks like just a glimpse of, when she woke up that morning. And so that's what Bennett's looking for, and he can't figure out how to get himself there.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should meet him quickly. Yeah. Would you be willing to do a brief reading for us?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll start from the beginning. And it's kind of a nice little merging of both of his worlds.
Great.
Okay, so in the hierarchy of linen stains, blood is at the top. Everyone thinks semen is the worst, but they're wrong. They only think this because of the popular TV show where inspectors take a black light to a hotel room and it lights up neon yellow, indicating bodily fluids all over the bedding. Since that report, people automatically throw off the bedspread in a hotel room, assuming it's drenched in some stranger's spunk. It probably is. That's why Bennett Driscoll prefers to use a duvet cover in his rentable 4-bed house. Soap, hot water, and a rigorous spin cycle will scrub all of the manhood out of a duvet cover. It's the stains you can detect with the naked eye that are the real problem. When Bennett throws back a duvet cover on checkout day, it's the sight of blood he fears most. Fuck. And there they are, halfway down the fitted sheet, only a couple drops worth, but on Bennett's bright white sheets, they stand out like a red scarf discarded in snow. Their removal will require bleach and a lot of scrubbing. Recently, he bought a nail brush, or for his purposes, a blood brush to combat the really stubborn stains. In the beginning, he would just throw away the visibly soiled sheets and buy new ones. But now, a year into renting his suburban London house on Airbed, he has thrown away 5 perfectly good sets of sheets. Bleach is cheaper. He pulls the fitted sheet up from the corners and wadding it into a ball in the center of the bed. If the blood has transferred onto the mattress pad, that's double the work. Damn it. Recently, Bennett has been awarded the status of superhost on the Airbed website, an honor he's earned for having a quick response rate and excellent reviews. Though it's never been his aspiration to become a host, he'd be lying if he said the little medal next to his picture didn't fill him with pride. Until 2 years ago, Bennett was a full-time artist who never stuttered over answering the question, "What do you do?" In fact, nobody ever needed to ask him. He was well-known painter Bennett Driscoll. Everyone knew that. Okay, maybe not everyone, but enough people that he didn't have to worry about renting his house out to tourists. Unfortunately, things change. Tastes change. It used to be that anything he painted would sell. In 2002, there was a wait list. Now, 16 years later, there are more than 100 paintings in storage. His last solo show was in 2013. The critic from The Guardian wrote, "Driscoll cares so little for the current trends in painting that one wonders if he concerns himself with contemporary art world at all." That pissed Bennett off, mostly because it was true. But a bad review is better than no review. He realizes that now. Since art critics don't review his work anymore, Bennett pores over Airbed reviews as though they're from the Sunday Times, scouring each one for new and nuanced understanding of his hosting skills. More often than not, they go like this. Bennett was a welcoming and gracious host. Bennett was very helpful. Bennett has a beautiful home. Looking forward to staying at Bennett's house again the next time we're in London. They're not exactly Times quality, but nevertheless, it's nice to be reviewed favorably. It's nice to be reviewed full stop. Sometimes he wonders if his ex-wife Eliza ever goes on to Airbed to read his reviews. Probably not. She left a year ago to live in America with a hedge fund manager named Jeff, taking with her her steady salary in publishing that, until the divorce, had been paying their bills. That's when Bennett decided to move into the studio at the end of his garden and rent the family house out on Airbed. He doesn't think his superhost status would impress Eliza. Almost nothing impressed her. He wishes someone would write, "Bennett has a beautiful home. He was a perfect host. No, the perfect man. Exciting, interesting, and handsome in equal measure. He would make an excellent husband. I even bought several of his paintings because I believe they are the pinnacle of contemporary art. No such luck yet."
Yay. That's really wonderful. I sympathize with Bennett though, because it's like we cannot, as writers, we cannot obsess over Goodreads reviews or Amazon reviews or respond to the ones that we think are unfair.
Yeah.
There's sort of a helpless feeling to it. So I get sort of obsessing over
Yeah.
something parallel, but that he might have a little more control over.
Yeah.
But it's such a personal thing, letting someone in your space, and there are financial realities. The world is a crazy place right now. I know I rented someplace for the weekend where I learned the owner of the home was just down the street at the Holiday Inn because it was the only way she could afford to keep the home, but by renting it out on the weekends. And I felt so terrible that I couldn't enjoy the weekend. But there's something so intimate about having someone in your personal space that I think must be so difficult. And it goes back to that question of observing someone. It's even more interesting to observe someone in your space because there must be a certain anger to it, but also you have the ideas about how the right way to behave and use the appliances or use the things in your house that you don't have control over.
Yeah, and people bring, they bring their smells with them. They bring, their habits with them. The things that you don't think about in your own home. You bring to somebody else's home, and it's completely foreign. And of course, Bennett can't not obsess over these things and watch them because he's in this little studio in his back garden. The window from the studio looks straight into the kitchen of his old house, And so everything that's happening in that room, he can see. And he just, I mean, it's in the beginning of the second guest chapter, Emma, where he just becomes completely obsessed with how she eats her cereal in the morning. and it's just all these little things that you wouldn't, when you live in a, I've been living in this house for many years with my husband, and we know each other's routines backwards and forwards. We don't think anything of it, but somebody else walks in, a guest comes to stay, and suddenly you're so aware of everything that you do. And that's Bennett's life pretty much day in, day out now.
Yeah, it's got to be torturous.
Yeah.
You write so sort of intimately and lovingly about London, and make sort of the different neighborhoods whatnot come to life. Why London for this story?
I'm not sure why I started there, except for the fact that I missed it. So
yeah,
I lived there for 5 years and met my husband there. And now we're over here most of the time, but we usually spend a couple months out of the year there. Not this year, obviously, but usually we're there for a couple.
Oh no, why?
So anyway, this is, I think, back when I started this book, we were also going through a patch where we, for various reasons, we couldn't get over there. And I think I just wanted it to happen over there. I mean, we certainly have an Airbnb culture here in Portland. I mean, almost a destructive degree, as so many cities do. I mean, Airbnb is a mixed bag on a lot of levels. And but I knew that I wanted to put it in a neighborhood in London where these big houses exist. And I'm sure it's true here too, but particularly in London, I think there are a lot of these big houses that people were able to buy sort of in the 80s, 90s fairly cheaply. And the market in London has just sort of exploded in the last 10 or 15 years. And suddenly you have this giant thing that you can't really afford to maintain. And it's now an incredibly expensive city. And so that's where he is. And I'm sure that's happening here too, but this was a place where I knew it was happening. And I knew that people were turning to things like Airbnb to solve the problem.
Yeah, it is difficult for cities now, because so many people are renting this that it creates a housing shortage, or certainly affordable housing shortage sometimes. So yeah, there's all sorts of downsides to this as well, but it's certainly here to stay. I can't imagine that this is something that's going to go away anytime soon. So there are women in this book. The book is sort of framed around 3 women who rent the home, and he has his Bennett's adult daughter, and a relationship with the woman Claire. But with the 3 women that are renting the house, when you came to create them, were you sort of viewing them through how because they're sort of, we're introduced to them through Bennett's eyes, basically Bennett's spying, observing of them. Did that affect how you created these women? Did you sort of first meet them yourself through his lens, or did you have a good sense of who they might be on their own?
No, I think, no, that's not true. Alicia, I absolutely met through Bennett's lens, because when I started writing that first chapter, I knew the only thing that I really truly knew about Alicia was that I wanted him to be attracted to her. And I wanted him to be uncomfortable with the fact that he was attracted to her, because she's quite a bit younger than him.
Yeah.
And so that was really, that was kind of that decision made. Emma came out much more on her own. I want to say she might have even been born out of a short story or something that I'd worked on beforehand and brought her into this. And I knew really with her just that I wanted somebody that just absolutely hated this guy. So, and then Kirsty, I guess, also maybe a little bit more through the lens of Bennett meeting her first, because that does happen. And I think in every scenario you meet them first.
Yes.
Through Bennett's eyes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, I was just sort of I'm so like stuck on this sort of theme of observing, and it's taking effect in my own writing right now. And I don't know if you feel this either as a visual artist or as a writer right now. Like, writing particularly to me is such an input output business, and it's so difficult to get that input now when we're spending so much time sheltering at home, staying apart from other people. People have masks on when they're outdoors. It's really hard to observe in the same way. And I was sort of wondering if you've had any observations on that affecting your artwork during this time.
I don't know about you, but I'm a total spy. I mean, all of that
Yeah.
with Bennett is, I think fairly true of me. I'm such an introverted person that when I'm around other people, I don't tend to converse with them so much as sort of awkwardly spy on them. Yeah. And so, what usually when we're able to go out and about in the world, that's what I'm doing. If my husband and I are sitting at a bar, I'm listening to the conversation of the people next to us. Same thing in cafes. And so I'm not getting the chance to write down those little bits of dialogue where I think, I'm going to steal this. And so I'm having to use my imagination, I think, much more, or I'm getting less jumping off points.
Yeah.
I'm getting less dialogue, and it's bothering me.
It is.
I want more people to say more strange things around me.
Well, not only that, not only like the direct stuff, but even just like this, like soaking up human experience right now is it's so difficult. When we're not able to travel and be full participants in the world, or even eat at restaurants, or have a great dish that inspires the senses or whatnot to get the writing juices flowing. It's really.
And we get so much of it from for me, I get so much of it from television now, or movies, or I'm watching something and I'm thinking, oh, this is really interesting. I really like what this person is doing. And then I have to be like, no, wait, this story has already been written. You can't. Yeah,
I know, exactly. We can't copy that. Well, it's interesting, like what it might do to art. It's like each step is going to be further removed from truth if we start using what other art is already there as our observational lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just reminds me of this quote that I wrote down because I think it's so interesting. It sort of ties into this. Instead of mixing his paint with fear and doubt, I wrote feet, actually. That's a typo on my notes. He doesn't mix his paint with his feet. Instead of mixing his paint with fear and doubt, he's mixing it with safety and predictability. Mm-hmm. And that's something I worry about right now. What we're just sort of talking about. There's sort of the safety of just staying at home right now. There is no sort of that sense of danger of observing or spying or whatnot. But what role does fear play in your artwork, in either format, as a writer or as a painter?
Yeah, I think for me, fear plays much more of a role as a writer. I think as a painter, I've always kind of I'm an abstract painter, and that most of that work is I'm a planner. I'm incredibly obsessive. I know what I'm going to do before I do it. I know exactly how long it takes me to do what I'm going to do. So I can go into the studio and say, this is going to take me 3 hours. And if it takes me 3 hours and 5 minutes, something has gone off. I'm that precise about what I do. And so as a writer, that's for me is where the fear comes in, because I don't have that kind of obsessive compulsive control over what I'm doing. I don't know where the characters are going to go. So I sit down and I'd like to think I know who they are, and I let them lead me. And that for me can be scary, because of course they always lead you somewhere that you're thinking, oh, no, I don't, it's like the horror movie. No, don't open the door. Don't go in there. That's what it feels like. Please don't go there. But you have to, trust them. But no, for me, that's much more scary. I mean, some days it's fun and it's great and you get to go somewhere fun and you get to laugh with them. And then other days it can be quite dark.
Yeah. I want to just remind people that we are, if you have any questions, certainly use the sort of chat feature and let us know, and we'll be happy to answer them as well. And just a reminder that the book is for sale at the Book Passage website. So please, independent bookstores particularly, let's keep them in business, because we all want them to be there when the world reopens. These are our community centers and the heartbeats of our town. So we want them to be there. So buy 2 books while you're there. Yeah. Were you feeling a sense of complacency in your painting? Is that what led to a novel? What was the thing that or was this story just so compelling to you that you thought it has to be told in a novel format? Like what was the time for a novel is now? What was that feeling like?
I think for me, it was more, I've been writing for a long time on and off.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't really I was in a position, I kind of in the opposite position of most writers, which I think maybe it's kind of an infuriating story for other people to hear, but I was really trying hard not to write. And I thought, no, I'm going to be a painter. That's what I'm going to do. I love to paint. And I was very superstitious about trying to be a writer as well. And I would kind of sort of have these weekends where I would sit down and I would try to write something, and then I would say, no, and I would walk away and I'd go back to painting. And I very rarely finished anything. And then I tried to write some screenplays. And so there were all of these different projects where I was thinking, well, maybe if I tried to do it this way, until this was really the first idea that came to me, where I just thought, no, I have to sit down and write it. It's not going away. But even still, I mean, I think by the time I had sort of thought of Bennett, it was 6 months before I actually sort of sat down and said, all right, I'm just going to see what this is like.
Yeah, that's good though. That's good. You know, he's here to stay. That's because you don't want to get halfway into the novel and then have him disappear all of a sudden.
But then after that, I think it was that evening, you know, my husband and I were meeting a friend, and we were sitting at a bar beforehand, and I just sort of blurted it out like I was confessing to some horrible thing that I started writing this book, and it's about this guy named Bennett, and you know, but it felt good. It was just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to write, you know, and I'd never tried to write a novel before. I tried some screenplays, I tried some short stories, and I just thought, so it was, you know, I don't know about you, when you first decided to sit down and write a novel, did you have to?
Yeah, I actually came to it as a frustrated screenwriter. I was trying screenwriting first as well, and had a modicum of success, but you know, the way that Hollywood works is there are many more screenplays than movies that could ever be made. So even though I was making some money as a screenwriter, I'd never had anything produced, and so I really felt like I'm putting so much of myself into this art, and no, it's never going to see the light of day. Like no one is ever going to see it. And so when I wrote my first novel, it wasn't so much that I felt like, oh, well, this will be easy. I'll just get it published and then everyone can read it. I wasn't that naive, but at least there's something about filmmaking and other, aside from painting, but some other creative outlets that are more collaborative, that are, I felt like I was always waiting for, a director or an actor or a financier or a producer or someone to say yes. And with each step along the way, everyone had notes and contributions that they were making that I didn't necessarily agree with. And my work was becoming really muddy. So it was mostly that I wanted more sort of authorial control. And which isn't to say that we do this entirely on our own, because as I said, we share a wonderful editor, and a great team at Putnam. So, thank goodness for them. But at least through that sort of beginning creative stages, it feels more authorial or singular. Does painting feel that way to you?
Completely, like even more so. I so rarely, when I think about what I'm writing, I think about immediately. I think, okay, well, what's my agent going to think about this? And then and it's like, well, what's Sally going to think? And then, you worry about that so much. What's the next person down the chain gonna think about this, and are they going to understand where I'm coming from? And I do that so much less with painting. And the painting, it's like, you like it or you don't. I'm not gonna, and you don't change it. You just think, you might, if you really respect someone's opinion, you might use it in the next one, use their advice, but you would never, I would never change a painting because somebody thought that I should do this, that, or the other thing. So it's a much more stubborn medium, I think, in that regard.
Yeah, but novel writing is also a very, as I say, a solitary occupation. Did you ever have any sense that you should pair painting or writing with something that's less solitary? Do you end up spending a lot of time alone or in your head, or
yeah, no,
how does
I
that
do. I
work?
spent so much time in my head. For the longest time, I mean, I did bartend for a really long time,
Mm,
and that felt. I wasn't doing a ton of writing back then. I was mostly painting, and although I sort of knew I was going to write because again, I was copying everybody's conversations and remembering everything everybody was saying. But no, I would paint in the morning, and then I would tend bar or wait tables at night, and it felt, that was where I got my social interaction from. And now, yeah, I mean, now, especially with the pandemic, it's, it's just, you don't,
right.
the solitary is become solitary in a way that you never imagined it would. So
Yeah. Is your husband creative at all? Is he an artist of any
he's an
kind?
artist as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
he's a painter and a photographer and a
All right, so
sculptor.
they understand. I live with another
Yeah.
writer too, and I
Yes.
feel for people, especially right now, if you're all sort of working from home, or like I feel for writers I know who are married to like high-powered attorneys, for instance, and they're always yelling on the phone all day. Like I was like, how could you possibly get any writing done?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're very lucky in the sense that we both have it's a it's a quiet, we both have the same quiet time.
Yeah.
And then when it's time to make dinner, suddenly the music comes on and we're chatty and everything, but we really kind of respect each other's work hours, and it's usually pretty quiet.
Yeah, it works out nice because I
Yeah.
because it's not a job that you can turn off necessarily either, particularly, when you're writing and you're really in something. It's not like, oh, 6 o'clock, I've got to make dinner, and you can just get out of your head, particularly if
Yeah.
you've been in something, working through something really intense. So it helps that I live with another writer who understands that and is, sympathetic to it. Because otherwise it could be difficult. The downside is I'd be like, wait a minute, you don't have health insurance either? Like what? Like, does one of us qualify for health insurance through someone's job, please?
But now that you're both, I mean, because you're both writers, my husband and I are sort of different enough at this
Yeah.
point. But are you, I mean, are you like competing with each other? Like, oh, I wrote 5,000 words today, or, are you getting competitive?
It hasn't felt competitive in that way. I will say, like, there were, I mean, first of all, we're each other's biggest fans, so that
helps.
truly helps. And we've worked it out. But there have been a couple times where I've been like, "What? Oh, you got reviewed in the New York Times?" Like, it's yeah. But it's there are sort of little things like that, but
Mhm.
no, because it's not a quantitative thing that way. Like, yeah, we both know you can't rush anything. Like, things come as they come. I guess sometimes, like, I'll be jealous when I see him like pounding away on the keyboard. I was like, oh wow, it's coming easy for you today.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm on my fourth cup of coffee and looking at is 35 words enough for one day? Like, when can I throw in the towel? I also want to talk a little bit about the relationship between music and other forms of art, because Bennett is a big fan of the rap artist. Wait, now I'm blanking on the name.
Roots Manuva is his name.
Roots Manuva.
Yeah.
Who is a real artist. Are you a fan? Is Roots someone that you listen to?
I'm a huge fan. He came to me kind of in a similar way that he came to Bennett, in the sense that I heard one of his songs, and it was a moment where I don't think we were at a restaurant like Bennett is, but I was somewhere where I had to just say, stop, I need to listen to this, and figured out what it was, and sort of, very quickly bought just about everything that he made. And that was maybe 2 or 3 years before I started writing this. He's been around forever. I mean, I think his first album was 99. So he's been around for a long time, but it was probably 2014 or 15 before I became aware of him. And he's decently famous in the UK. He's kind of one of the first British rappers. He has this quality to him where he can, and I think you and I both share an interest in this, which is like, that line between whether or not you want to laugh or cry, and you're not quite sure. And all of his songs make you feel that way. And so I just knew that I wanted him in this book, because for me, not only because I thought that his music was perfect for Bennett, but also just to remind me of what it was I was trying to do. I like to have those influences around me.
Yeah. Well, music is so great because like if there's a great song, you can be like, oh, you've got to listen to this, and you can listen to it with the person right there. Whereas like, we've all had books where we're like, oh, you've got to read this book. And I'm sure, Elaine is a bookseller, has placed many books in many people's hands saying, you have to read this, but you can't really stand over their shoulder while they read it and see if they're reacting in the same way or the way that you want them to. But music is so immediate, and it's meant to be shared. It's meant to be consumed by multiple people at once. But it can also be a very individual experience too. And so, do you listen to music while you work, either painting or writing?
I do both. I listen to them both. When I'm in the studio, I'll listen to, I have kind of studio playlists, but I can do just about anything. I can listen to just about anything while I'm painting. When I'm writing, I have a very specific list of I write in about 2-hour chunks, and I listen to the same sort of playlist every day. And basically, it's a little over 2 hours long, and I just press play and I put my noise canceling headphones on and I just go, and and it's and it's the kind of it's there mostly to, I'm not even really listening to it. It's there mostly just to sort of get me in the frame of mind that I need to be in because I'm so obsessive.
Right.
So it gets, it closes me into a world and I get going. But it's when I'm in the studio, when I'm painting, that I'm really listening and I'm really thinking about the music as well.
Yeah. Have you created playlists for a specific paint? For instance, you have this painting in mind that you're going to create, and then would you build a playlist specifically for a painting that you're imagining, or is it more sort of universal than that?
No, it's more universal than that, but I have a kind of, so I have sort of studio playlists in, I think I'm on probably 15 or something now. But I think it would be interesting though to, because they have a kind of a year association to them. And so, the music from, from what the music is, I can sort of tell, oh yeah, that must have been 2009 or whatever. And so, and then you can look back at paintings from 2009 and it's kind of interesting to, to see the relationship work that I'm doing with what I'm listening to. And I used to go through a phase where I titled all my paintings song lyrics. I've stopped doing that now, thank goodness.
Oh wow. Yeah. Well, there's something like I think it's true, or certainly I think whenever I'm reading a novel and I see a song lyric used or a song mentioned or an artist mentioned, I tend to think that song means something very personal to the author. But there are sort of legal challenges to using lyrics, certainly as much as you want to. If they're so important to you, you feel like you have to share them on behalf of the character. But you can only quote so much before you got to pony up. Did you always think it has to be Roots Maneuver? Did you ever think about creating a fictional
I did.
Because I did this once and I was like, I'm going to write all the lyrics and then I can quote my own lyrics however much I want. And then, oh my God, like writing a song is terrifying. I always get so jealous when I'm watching a music documentary or something. And they're like, well, we wrote this great song on the back of a napkin. And I would like, oh my God, no, I would much rather write a novel than a song. It just seems impossible to me.
Write it, with a rhythm and rhyme. Yeah. I mean, it's like, no, I mean, I would have absolutely have loved to have created this character, but there's no way I could have. There's no way I could have written rap lyrics. Absolutely not.
You can write a 55-year-old man, but what beyond that, at least he was an artist. You had certain things in common. So we have a question from Sally Kim. Yay! Hi, Sally. I'm so thrilled that she's here tonight. But she's asking, we both work in different mediums other than novel writing. For Kate, obviously painting. For myself, that's screenwriting, which I still do. So do you find moving back and forth between them difficult? Were you painting the whole time you were writing the novel? Do you divide your day? Are there certain hours, or is it today's a painting day, today's a writing day? How does that work?
I go back and forth a little bit. I think generally speaking, my best formula at the moment is writing in the morning and painting in the afternoon. that doesn't always work out. So my main rule that I have with myself, because I have a lot of rules with myself, but the main one is that I have to do at least one, like, so, and more often than not, it ends up being that I write in the morning and I paint in the afternoon. Yeah. How about
Yeah.
you?
It's well, they're both writing. They're both right. Yeah, I wish like, I was talking to a writer who also teaches spinning. Sometimes, about when the world is more normal. And I was like, because sometimes I have dreams that I'm just like, I have this recurring dream where I'm just like chasing a train. I'm just like running alongside a train, and I think it's because like everything that I do is so sedentary. That I was like, God, I shouldn't have chosen two vocations that are both sitting at a computer in a chair. But screenwriting, it's a very different sort of set of rules, and you know this from attempting that, novel writing can be much more internal. You can really get into what a character is thinking and feeling, whereas screenwriting, everything has to be external, has to be through dialogue or action, something that you can see on the screen. So I like them. I can sort of do both at the same, I mean, not literally at the same time. One hand doesn't do one hand does it. But I can have two projects going because it's almost like a different flex. It's almost a different skill set for each. And sometimes my brain is more like, oh, no, we're working this way today as that. And I try not to be too rigid with a schedule because if something's flowing, I don't want to stop. Be like, oh, I got to switch over. No, I know I have enough experience as a writer now to know don't interrupt it when it's coming. Yeah, for sure. I think it's so interesting that you said earlier that you tried not to write. You determined not to be a writer. Is it okay to say who your dad is?
Yes.
Yeah, for anyone listening who doesn't know, Kate's father is Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Richard Russo, and your sister Emily owns a bookstore in print. Shout out to Printed Bookstore as well, another great independent. I love Emily. I love Josh. I did an event there for the editor. They were so great. So did it feel a little bit like the mafia? Did it feel like being pulled into the family business?
It absolutely did. And it was something that I think I was just aware of the fact that I couldn't do it lightly. And actually one of the funnier moments of how it got going and that I sort of knew that I was ultimately going to do it was that I had to give a speech at my sister's wedding. And I basically ended up giving this sort of speech of like advice to her husband for joining my family, because we're just a bit intense, and it sort of felt like he needed to know what the rules were going to be for coming in. And so I basically laid out this speech for sort of all of the weird idiosyncrasies that we have as Russos. And amazingly, it went over very well. And that was the moment where I realized that I actually really enjoy making people laugh more than really just about anything else. Doesn't make it any easier to do it once you've realized that that's what you love to do. But I kind of knew at that point that I couldn't ignore it, that I needed to, if this made me happy, I needed to try to do it.
Yeah, I think it's probably harder with that kind of expectation too, that comes with the name. We have another question, and I love this one because so many readers and so many people who attend these events are also writers themselves. I know I tune into a lot of bookstore events because I always learn something, whether it's about the subject of the book or whether it's about the writing process. There's always something great to learn. So advice on someone writing their first time novel. There is an element of luck to it, but how did you know when your manuscript was done and was sort of ready to query for agents? Did you have readers you showed it to first, or what happened when you think, okay, I think I have this story? What's the next step?
I had a couple of readers who helped me sort of realize that I was kind of ready to go for the next step. My sense, I don't know if you feel the same way, is that when I thought I was ready, I wasn't quite ready yet. So that's where I think that's where those readers come in really handy, because I in particular get really impatient and I get really excited. and I just want to get it out there. And then it turns out that actually, no, it still needs quite a bit more work. So patience is unfortunately the thing that nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs. So absolutely get readers, people that you really trust, people that are in the
people who will tell you the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just your mom.
Yeah.
and yeah, I think it sounds like, I mean, I don't, you tell me, but I sort of feel like it is kind of a gut feeling though, isn't it? When you feel like you've got something. And I had a moment when I started reading it where there were parts of it, not everything, but there were parts of this book that I was enjoying reading so much that I forgot that I'd written them.
Yeah.
And I think if you can get to that point where you can get a little bit lost in your own writing, you're probably there.
Yeah, I would add a couple things to that. One, the getting lost in your own writing is it comes with distance too. So when you think you're done, put it aside for a little bit, because you're going to need a bit of distance from that to accurately evaluate your own work. You know, you can be a good reader for yourself, but you can't type the end and immediately start and read it through again. Which that's a great fun because you know, Superhost is very funny. There's some very sly humor in it as well. And I write a lot of humor, and it's hard sometimes because you write a joke, you're sitting there and you're like, ha ha ha, this is so great. And then it could be years before anyone actually, you know, because of how slow publishing can be and the long lead times, it could be years before it lands with an audience. But when sometimes I'll read something and forget I wrote it, and I was like, oh, that's actually, if I can laugh, that's a good joke. Two, I would say, if you have the ability, hire a freelance editor, mostly because the way the business works now, you really do get that one opportunity to make a first impression, and you want your work to look as polished as possible. And there are many sort of freelance editors who are big helps, both in doing a copy edit, or can give you a structural edit or some comments about the overall story itself. And if you have the ability to do that, I've done it, and I've found that very helpful. And then three, I think it's so important to learn how to talk about your work. And that can be difficult for writers because we want the work to speak for itself. But to get someone interested to read it, like an agent, and I'll use the example of my first book, which was called Lily and the Octopus. It has a dog and an octopus. And, if you call New York publishing agents and say, do you want to read my manuscript about a dog and an octopus? Like, not to introduce another animal here, but you can hear crickets on the other end of the phone. But if you say, it's a novel about someone who finds themselves stuck in their lives, and how the obstacles in their way are either greatly exaggerated or perhaps entirely made up, find a universal theme that your book, and be able to talk about it in a way that relates it to other readers, because that's going to interest an agent into taking a chance on reading it. So those are a few suggestions there. And follow writers on social media, and don't be afraid to engage, because a lot of times they'll post about experience and whatnot, or feel free to ask questions. I found most people to be, not everyone, but most people to be very nice. So we have another question from Crystal Perry. I'm a big fan of audiobooks. Did you, Kate, have much input in the choice of Julia Whalen as narrator?
I think I had two choices, and I can't remember the name of the man that I was given as an option. And I went with Julia because I have such a specific sound, what Bennett sounds like, and he just didn't sound like him. And I thought, you know what, Julia sounds a little bit like me. And so I felt that was the more comfortable relationship. That I thought, because I couldn't, the wrong male voice was not going to do it for me. And I didn't, I was unsure about her British accent. And so I made them swear that she could do a British accent. Not only can she do a British accent, but she can do the difference. So there's different regions.
Sure.
In London. And I had to listen to her doing my character, Carl, who has a kind of a bizarre sort of East End, sort of what we call a Mockney accent in England, is basically just a fake Cockney accent. And she does it perfectly. So yeah, no, I'm very happy with her reading.
Yeah, it's great. I have a hard time listening to my audiobooks. They're very well done. They're incredibly well produced. People love the narrator of it, but I hear it in such a specific way.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful actor, Michael Urie, do the audiobook for the editor, and he's an actor. He's a professional actor. He's great, and part of his job should be to interpret the text, and put his own spin on it. You live with it so long. It's so individually yours and yours alone for so long that hearing someone else read it can be a startling experience.
Especially one of the characters is Jackie Onassis. My God, how did
right? I know. I know.
I have to go listen to this.
Poor Michael Urie, who actually did both of my books. In one of the characters was my dog in the first one, and then in the next book, it's Jacqueline Onassis. So I'm like, good luck, Michael. Yeah. I'm sure he's long stopped taking my calls since then. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I met your father. I've told you this story at Winter Institute, which is a convention for independent bookstores and booksellers. And he sat in on a panel that was being held for first-time novelists, for debut novelists. And now here you are as a debut novelist. But he sat in on this panel, which was held by booksellers to sort of instruct new novelists how they could work together with booksellers and be good partners. And your dad, who has published so many books, he just sat in on that panel to support first-time writers. And I won't ever forget that. There was no reason for him to do it other than kindness and to share a little bit of his own experience. And afterwards I went up and I introduced myself, and he was, I said, I'm from Maine also. And he looked at my name tag and he said, because of the way our last names fall in the alphabet, that our books would soon be rubbing spines on bookshelves. And that, I was blown away by that. It just meant the world to me personally. And now I'm so thrilled to say that you and I will have books rubbing spines. Yeah, you've wedged your way between us, but that is just fine with me. I'm thrilled to be in that R section with you. Congratulations on a stunning debut. It really is a joy to read. And thank you also to Book Passage, which is indeed an incredible store. And everybody check out their events calendar, because they do some incredible programming. It's one of the joys of, if there's an upside to the way life is right now, is that so many of these events are available online. You don't have to live in the town where the event is taking place. You can tune in from all over. You can support that bookstore. You can have access to these great programs. Please, as I said earlier, support your independent bookstore, because we need them not only to survive, but to thrive. So thank you, Elaine, for having us.
Thank you both so much. And I'm so happy that this event will be archived. And so if you saw this event and you have a friend who you think would enjoy it, please tell them to come to bookpassage.com. They can find it it'll be archived by tomorrow. And it was a magical event. I loved it. And I love these two books. I'm so honored that we were able to do them. And right now they are on a table at Book Passage next to each other.
Oh, yay.
You can find them at either our Ferry building or our Corte Madera store, and especially online. And we will be looking forward to seeing you again. Kate, I have great memories of events with your dad. And I remember him telling me his daughter was going to be writing. And I am so glad that I got to have an event for this incredible book. We have signed book plates from Kate for Superhost. So let us know if you'd like one with a book plate. And Steven, you are a great host. I may have to just make you come to every.
Oh, please, please.
So,
Elaine, you may be surprised to hear this, but I have literally nothing else going on. I have no other plans.
But I wanted to say how happy I am that you brought up audiobooks, because the audios of both of these books are brilliant. I have a weird habit. If I love a book, then I listen to it on audio. Some people listen to it on audio instead. I'm weird that way, but they're both wonderful. And if you'd like to support us or any independent, if you go on our website at bookpassage.com and you click on audio, you will get to Libro FM, which is the audio company that supports independent bookstores and also doesn't data mine your information.
2 for 1. Yeah.
Listening,
Yeah.
I'm going to find out a lot about you. We don't find that out. We don't want to know it, but they are it's a wonderful company. And once you've signed up with whichever bookstore you've come through, they will get a little bit of credit every time you buy an audiobook. So please do that. Audio is, I used to wonder if I would like audio as much as books. I love them both. So thank you. And thank you both for these absolutely perfect books to be reading right now, because in each book, you just get so involved and have so much fun. So have a wonderful evening, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you online again soon.
And in person, hopefully soon after that.
In person, we have loved our events with Steven, and we're going to have one soon with Kate when life gets
Absolutely.
there.
Can't wait.
And we can't wait to see you. Either way, we're thank you so very much. And thanks to all of you who support Book Passage and who buy books. Thank you.